junior high and the first years in high school, you're so awkward. Like, it's just a time where it's like, I don't know who I am. I'm still developing. I'm trying to figure out, will anyone like me? Will I ever date? And, if you're not approached by someone, well, of course, girls and guys alike will say, well, maybe you're gay. Well, maybe you're trans, maybe you're, have you looked at this? And so they're providing us like just another route. Like, you don't have to date. Maybe you're just looking at the wrong sex.
I've wondered if a lot of the conversation in our culture right now against white people and having white skin, but if you don't want to be in the oppressor class, you can instantly jump into an oppressed class.
Yes. By
coming out as gay or trans. And it's almost even not enough just to be gay now. Like, gay is almost passé. It's you really, what you really want to do is have trans credit. Or am I just imagining that, Becket?
No, in fact, so this was maybe 5 years ago. I went to the opera in LA with my old best friend, who is still, he's not a Christian. I went to the opera, and we went to the opera to a gay couple, two men, and one of the guys is a huge producer at HBO, and I think he does stuff for Netflix as well. And it was funny, during intermission, we were outside kind of just chatting, and he was telling us that they were having a hard time finding directors for this TV show he was working on, because there were so many mandates about it. We have to have a certain amount of trans directors. We have to have a certain amount of gay directors, blah, 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 blah. And so he said that it was really hard because they couldn't find it was hard finding the trans directors who knew how to do this type of show, because it was a very specific type of show. And then my friend said, my old best friend said to him, well, what about gays? And he said, oh, that's passé. He literally said what you just said. He said, oh, that's passé. Like, no, they don't care about gays anymore. You have to be like trans now. So it's gotten so extreme. So the intersectionality stuff, you have to be so, you can't just be a gay minority. You have to be a trans minority. You have to keep, it's like the oppression Olympics, as Dave Rubin calls it. You just have to keep getting more and more into how many ways can I be oppressed, and how can I show that to people? And I think that's very enticing to young people, because they want to be seen as oppressed, and they also want to be seen, because there's a certain Gnosticism to this. Like, if like a trans person somehow has special knowledge.
Yes.
And it's like, so a impressionable kid in high school or junior high wants to have some sort of special knowledge and have some sort of insight into something interesting and cool. So they're like, oh, I'm trans. And so now I have that special knowledge. Now I'm oppressed. Now I'm a sexual minority. Now you have to treat me in a certain elevated way. And, you can't say certain things to me. You have to use certain pronouns for me. And it's all demonic. It's just all straight from the pit of hell. And and as I said, it's fueled by Satan, and Satan is the god of the prince of confusion. And he's confusing so many young people, and it's so heartbreaking. And it's heartbreaking for their parents. I mean, I can't even imagine being a parent in this age with young kids, because the parents are just kind of like, what? They're baffled. They don't even know what to think. I get so many emails from parents who are just like, I don't even know what to do. My kid, my son now says he's a girl. Like, my 14-year-old son now says he's a girl. And it's just, to me, it's just such a sad kind of period in history. I mean, there's been all in Christian history and before Christian history, but in Christian history, there's been, very traumatic. Even in the first century, there obviously was very difficult times. Like Nero was burning people at his party. He was lighting Christians on fire at his parties to illuminate the party. He was putting, having animals tear apart Christians. So there's always been this kind of crazy culture. And obviously, when Paul for example, in First Corinthians, the Christians in Corinth were nuts. They were doing all sorts of crazy things, and they didn't know. It was so the Greco-Roman in antiquity, the Greco-Roman culture was very much like our culture is now. Mm-hmm. And so it's nothing new. There's nothing really new about it. It's just what's kind of new about it is this. That it's because at least in the West, I don't know about the whole world, but at least in the West, this has been homosexual behavior and these other LGBTQ things have been taboo up until recently. And so until relatively recently. And so that's the new thing, is that it's become almost mandatory for corporations, for, networks, for TV networks, movie studios to completely jump on board with this. And even if they don't even feel like it's right, they just they have to jump on board, or else they're going to be canceled. And so I find that this period in history is very, very disturbing.
There's so much social pressure. Like when you look at the junior high school kid, there's a ton of, pressure to be accepted, just, and wanting to be included in all that the brain is like literally doing, physically doing, neurologically at that time, and how in groups, means so much and things like that. So then if your in group is all trans, or, telling you, well, hey, you can have this, special knowledge if you, just subscribe to this, or I would say, and in addition to that, the time in junior high school, especially, but, junior high and the first years in high school, you're so awkward. Like, it's just a time where it's like, I don't know who I am. I'm still developing. I'm trying to figure out, will anyone like me? Will I ever date? And, if you're not approached by someone, well, of course, girls and guys alike will say, well, maybe you're gay. Well, maybe you're trans. Maybe have you looked at this? And so they're providing as like just another route. Like you don't have to date. Maybe you're just looking at the wrong sex.
Yeah. I mean, even people like me growing up, we've kind of erased the whole category of tomboys. But I mean, I've just been the chronic tomboy all my life, and I'm okay with that. I just been a little different. But I think if I had been growing up now, the social pressure that being a tomboy isn't really what you are. What you really are is you're supposed to be a boy. Mm-hmm. And, you should start transitioning. I never had those messages as a child, but I can imagine how destructive that would be. And I would have missed out on a really amazing life with my husband, my kids, and all of that if I had been hijacked by that message. It breaks my heart to see young people going through surgeries, life-altering surgeries that will take away their reproductive powers. Mm-hmm. I mean, I made so many dumb choices as a 15-year-old. If I had made choices as a 15-year-old that would have steered the rest of my life, that those weren't necessarily the best choices I ever made in my life. But I'm looking at it from the standpoint of being in my 50s now.
And, yes, like I hear all of like what is happening to the person. But then when you look at corporations, they're like 15-year-olds too. Because now it's like, well, if I don't say Black Lives Matter or raise a black fist or have a rainbow stripe on my website,
or have a boy modeling makeup for a
yes.
major makeup company,
Sephora, you know, like if I'm not, you know, if I'm Sephora and I don't have a trans model or something like that, well, then now I'm going to get canceled. Now I don't get to belong to the in group. And so it's like, yes, we see this on the individual level with young kids, but you also see it, like you were saying, like on the larger social spectrum of, do you affirm these things? And if you don't affirm them, then your social credit, like your clout, like you aren't a part of the cool kids group.
Yeah. It's, and again, we have to remember that there's a spiritual battle going on. And it's not just this realm on earth that's happening. This is a spiritual battle. And, you know, Paul, as we know, Satan is the prince of the power of the air. And so we have to be aware of the spiritual dimension of it. And we have to, as, you know, believers, I do this a lot. We have to pray about this. We have to pray for these young kids who are going through this. We have to pray for families who are going through this, because I really think that's, you know, the answer to it.